This past weekend in Portland, Oregon, for competitive Pokemon Go PvP, it's safe to say the king is back. ItsAXN, the 2023 Pokemon Go World Champion and the 2022 North American International Champion, just was crowned the 2025 Portland Regional Champion. And he did so with Blastoise, a Pokemon that had never previously won a Pokemon Go tournament before. He paired up Blastoise with Tinkaton, Lapras, Shadow Jumpluff, Malamar, and Diggersby, and today we're going to be showcasing some of the battles on his incredible run. His first streamed opponent was against multi-time regional champion and current reigning North American International Champion, Out of Pocket. So right off the bat, he was going to be in for an incredibly difficult fight. Game 1, he starts off with a pretty nice lead though, leading Tinkaton into the Shadow Jumpluff. Tinkaton does have a favorable matchup here, and AXN is going to strike first as he looks to connect with a Play Rough. Out of Pocket, immediately no shielding here. Play Rough is going to land. Pocket is going to look to farm up close to 100 energy, and he's going to save switch into his own Tinkaton. Now, if AXN had a Diggersby in the back, that could have been a really tough spot, but with no Diggersby from AXN, the calculated gamble from Pocket pays off, as the Tinkaton is answered with Blastoise. Blastoise able to output some pretty significant pressure here with the Hydro Cannons, but since this is the non-Shadow Blastoise, the bulky Tinkaton will be able to survive the double up on Hydro Cannons and pressure a shield or switch advantage from AXN. This Tinkaton hangs on not by much, and Pocket is not going to bait. He needs to guarantee some kind of advantage, and AXN is going to surrender switch advantage. But this is where now Out of Pocket is suddenly in a very advantageous position, because Out of Pocket stored close to 100 energy on the Shadow Jumpluff. And if you look across AXN's team, there's only one Pokemon that resists flying, and it's the Tinkaton that is now going to be aligned onto Diggersby. Diggersby more than happy to absorb Play Rough after Play Rough in this matchup. Play Rough is going to come through, AXN is going to switch into Lapras, and now Pocket's strategy is revealed. Pocket saved all that energy from earlier against the Tinkaton because he knew if he could flip switch advantage, then this energy would absolutely shred any Pokemon on AXN's team in the back, not named Tinkaton. Lapras is immediately forced to double shield thanks to the acrobatics, and the pacing and the damage from Shadow Jumpluff is absolutely terrifying. The Jumpluff is low enough that you can just fire off the Sparkling Aria here, so that's exactly what AXN is going to do, but an Acrobatics number 3 is reached, and this Shadow Jumpluff is just taking over. Acrobatics lands big damage onto the Lapras. Lapras hoping for a farm down, not gonna get it. The Aerial Ace will be reached. If AXN can bank back-to-back Sparkling Arias and have enough health to survive a quick attack, then maybe he can win. In comes the Diggersby. Diggersby going to be hit with a Play Rough. This will put the Diggersby into Sparkling Aria range, but unfortunately, there's still the Jumpluff, and when Lapras does end up throwing that first Sparkling Aria, a quick attack will go through, and Lapras does not have the health remaining to survive that quick attack. So AXN is going to bring in the Lapras, hoping against hope that he has enough HP, but you can tell he realizes he does not, and Lapras will faint with that second Sparkling Aria. Moving into game number 2, now it's AXN with the Shadow Jumpluff into the Lapras of Out of Pocket. And Out of Pocket does have the Skull Bash Lapras. He banks quite a bit of energy and makes a nice catch onto Diggersby. Diggersby more than happy to absorb the Shadow Acrobatics. Lapras now pretty healthy and with a ton of stored energy. AXN is going to rebank some energy, trying for a Fire Punch catch onto the Lapras, but great patience from Out of Pocket. Scorching Sands is going to connect onto the Lapras. Lapras does not get debuffed. Lapras is looking to farm up here, and Lapras will actually let a second Scorching Sands come through as it looks to try and exit with as much energy as possible. Scorching Sands is going to land, farming up past the back-to-back Sparkling Arias, and now Pocket has a choice to make. But Pocket's going to take advantage of the desync of the switch timers. He's going to shield, protect the Diggersby, switch into the Lapras, and that forces AXN to throw this energy, or he could lose it to Out of Pocket throwing his own Sparkling Aria. So this energy lands where it's not going to be very efficient, but in comes the Shadow Jumpluff. So AXN employing some of the tactics Pocket used against him in game number 1 against Pocket in game number 2. Pocket is going to go for the Skull Bash now. AXN will end up using the shield and gets the shield call right. Lapras has now boosted up its defense, but with no shields to hide behind, and with all that energy wasted to a shield, This acrobatics, even to a +1 defense Lapras, is going to hurt. Lapras is able to hang on. Jump Bluff trying to get to the Aerial Ace, realizes it can't get there, and AXN sees the win con. The win con is Blastoise with a shield. In comes Blastoise. He's going to pivot into the Shadow Jumpluff, and Jumpluff is farming up a lot of energy here. Jumpluff going for the bait. Blastoises always love to shield before they go for the Skull Bash, but AXN with the perfect read, understanding Pocket would feel pressured to bait there, calls the bait, and that is devastating for Pocket, as if he had full scent, and acrobatics would have done monster damage. We will see the Jumpluff now firing off another Aerial Ace. That is going to grab the shield from AXN. AXN, these rollouts are adding up quite significantly, will not be enough to farm down. The Ace's reach to switch to the Lapras, and Pocket does not have the health needed to get to the back-to-back moves. Aerial Ace will KO the Lapras, but he does not have the energy here. In comes the Blastoise, the quick switch into the Diggersby, and now a moment of fear for AXN. Is it the Scorching Sands? No, it's just the Fire Punch. The back-to-back Hydro Cannons are ready to go for the Blastoise. Blastoise will be able to pick up the knockout. Down goes Diggersby. In comes Lapras. Lapras will not get the move. And AXN gets the equalizer in this heavyweight bout, as this Hydro Cannon, while resisted, is more than enough to KO the 1 HP Jumpluff. We move now to the decisive Game 3, and it's Diggersby staring down Diggersby. Now this matchup, often decided by Scorching Sands debuffs, and Pocket is going to throw right away. AXN going to be no shielding, as he's more than happy to absorb this damage. Scorching Sands debuff does get applied, but he will immediately switch into the Blastoise. Blastoise now going to be hit with a second Scorching Sands, and again another no shield for AXN. Scorching Sands is going to land another Scorching Sands debuff. AXN farming up a ton of energy. Oh, great patience. Pocket trying for the Hydro Cannon catch onto the Lapras, but AXN not going to fall for it as he unleashes Skull Bash at the Lapras. Unfortunately, that is debuffed by that Scorching Sands debuff, so not doing as much damage as it typically would. Lapras going for the Sparkling Aria. This is a boosted Blastoise here. Will Blastoise hang on? Blastoise does hang on and gets the Skull Bash through. This Skull Bash is going to do some pretty significant damage to the Lapras, able to save the low HP Blastoise, sending in his own Lapras, unable to get the Psywave down before the Aria is reached, but that's still not incredibly meaningful damage. So for AXN, he would still rather this move land here in exchange for a healthy energy head start on his Lapras. It's going to be the Shadow Drapion in the back, and Drapion down energy. It does have a pacing advantage over the Lapras, but down this much energy, things do get a bit complicated. Drapion is going to fire off another Crunch, but before it can, we see AXN firing off another Sparkling Aria, and the Drapion's just running out of health. It no-shielded the first, but now it's already into the red, and potentially, AXN may have an ability to farm down here. AXN is going to commit the shield. We see another Crunch reached, and AXN is going to burn his final Protect shield of the match. Can Pocket's Drapion hang on? It's going to be close. Pocket is staying in. He thinks he can get there. Can he get to the Crunch? No, he cannot. He gets farmed down, and there's so much energy available on this Lapras. Lapras firing off the Sparkling Aria, the shield from out of pocket, doing what he can to try and keep this Diggersby as healthy as possible. Diggersby does have the Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands into the Lapras will get the Lapras low. AXN switches back into his Diggersby, and now that he's reset the debuff from earlier, he gets a full power Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands does not get the 30% chance at an attack drop. Pocket went 2 for 2 on those debuffs earlier in the game. We'll see, does he get another? Firing off the Scorching Sands. It's AXN. Will get debuffed one more time. 3 debuffs from Pocket in this game. This Scorching Sands is going to connect, getting that Diggersby pretty low, and AXN knows all he needs is a Fire Punch. Even if the Fire Punch itself doesn't knock out, it'll get it low enough that he can snipe down with a Psywave. Fire Punch into the Diggersby, does pick up the KO, and AXN is able to take the 2-1 series victory over a formidable opponent, and he will advance to his group finals. AXN's group finals opponent for Group A was Kobe Coupint, a trainer who had placed in the top 4 in the Portland Regional Championships the previous year, a regional that I was actually lucky enough to cast in person. Now, Kobe's team has Malamar, Diggersby, Golisopod, Lapras, Jumpluff, and Clodsire. And again, this is another team that looks pretty soft to that anti-meta choice that AXN made to bring the Blastoise. For game number 1, Malamar staring down Golisopod. This is not where Malamar wants to be. X-Scissor, double super effective damage. He's going to safe switch into the Blastoise. Kobe able to overfarm nicely and fire off this X-Scissor with great timing. This X-Scissor will do a solid amount of neutral damage to the Blastoise, but since it is the non-Shadow Blastoise, it can actually barely survive too. But AXN, he wants to invest in the Blastoise, so he will end up using a shield. Kobe is going to farm. He's going to send out Diggersby, but now Diggersby is going to be met with back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Diggersby has pretty solid pacing, but it's so far behind in this matchup before it can even make it to a Fire Punch. The back-to-back Hydros are reached, and for AXN, he's getting meaningful damage on an incredibly bulky opponent. Diggersby is now going to be answered with Lapras. AXN hoping for the Psywave down, but the Diggersby barely able to hang on, making one final Scorching Sands before it will succumb to the Psywaves. So Lapras is down a shield, but it does have an energy head start, and back in comes Golisopod, and the moment AXN sees that, he knows his Lapras is good in the back. With Diggersby out of the way, that does narrow down the options to Clodsire or the Shadow Jumpluff. We will see the X-Scissor launched by the Golisopod and the no shield by AXN. He knows he can survive this. He's not in any danger of being farmed down. There's going to be a switch into the Clodsire. Now the final Pokemon is revealed and Kobe will immediately use his final Protect Shield. The Sparkling Aria is going to be shielded, but Poison Sting just does not do enough damage here. The Lapras is too bulky. The Sludge Bomb fired off by the Clodsire, but AXN knows if he shields, he can get to the move. Not just the Aria, he wants the harder hitting Ice Beam. While Ice Beam is less efficient, it does more overall damage than an Aria, so if you can only get to one, Ice Beam is the way to go. Ice Beam does significant damage. In comes the Malamar. Malamar more than happy to be met with a Sludge Bomb here, and now that the Sludge Bomb has been thrown, Malamar should just be able to farm up to the back-to-back moves. There's the switch into Golisopod, and that's why AXN wanted the back-to-back moves, so we can have a move ready the moment Golisopod hit the field. Golisopod gets KO'd, in comes the Clodsire, Foul Play is going to be reached, and for ItsAXN, a bit of a tricky lead scenario, but the Blastoise pivot ending up allowing him to reposition very favorably and take the win. Shadow Jumpluff into Diggersby in the next match, and again we see that Blastoise lurking in the back with a double water backline with the Lapras. Diggersby striking first with a Fire Punch, super effective damage, but Shadow Jumpluff is very bulky. Now, in comes the Blastoise. Blastoise farming up quite a bit of energy, and Kobe throwing on very nice timing there, taking advantage of the fact that AXN's switch was going to be 1 turn instead of 0. The Scorching Sands will land, no debuff comes through, in comes the Shadow Jumpluff, and Shadow Jumpluff will immediately be met with a Skull Bash. Now, these are open team sheet formats, so Kobe knows this is a Skull Bash. It's not going to be an Ice Beam or any kind of super effective damage, so he knows that he can survive it. Kobe ends up throwing on alignment there, covering for a Hydro Cannon on alignment, but that gives 13 free energy to this Blastoise. That is a lot of free energy. That's almost a third of a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon launched at this Jumpluff is going to pick up the knockout, and this Blastoise proving his worth game after game after game. For Kobe, what do you send in? He's going to bring in the Diggersby. Diggersby immediately met with the Hydro Cannon, and Diggersby is going to commit the shield. Blastoise winning switch advantage so important, as that means that the Diggersby for Kobe is now going to be aligned against the Lapras, where it struggles immensely. Kobe going for the Fire Punch, hoping it will knock out. It's resisted, but this is a +1 defense Blastoise. It hangs on. That forces Kobe to switch and make a catch onto his Lapras. His Lapras will now take a little bit of chip damage, and there is all the stored energy from the Shadow Jumpluff. The play that Pocket did against AXN so successfully in that game number 1. AXN immediately learning from that strategy and replicating it. Shadow Jumpluff energy is too strong. Unless a team has a Tinkaton, it does not have a resist to flying, and therefore Shadow Jumpluff offers incredible flexible play and some pretty incredible damage as well. This is not Sparkling Aria range, so Kobe is forced to unleash the Skull Bash. Skull Bash picks up the KO, but that's so much energy lost, and now AXN gets to bring in his Lapras. His Lapras is going to be met with the Sparkling Aria, but he knows this is nowhere near the energy for a Skull Bash, so he's not going to shield. Sparkling Aria is going to land. In comes the Diggersby. One Psywave and the Sparkling Aria come out from AXN, and AXN knows he is in a completely winning position. All he has to do is make it to another Sparkling Aria. We see Kobe going for this Scorching Sands, but for AXN, he doesn't need to shield it, but you can't take shields with you to the next game, so he will end up committing the shield. The attack drop does come through, but it's too little too late. Diggersby's getting KO'd by the Sparkling Aria anyway. AXN farms down, and he's going to be advancing to winners semifinals. He is a very tough opponent there, Ashton Ash, actually the runner-up at the North American International Championships, where Pocket ended up taking home the crown. So he's going through quite a gauntlet of trainers, and Ashton Ash is running a team with Shadow Lapras, Corviknight, Azumarill, Credilli, Claydol, and Shadow Drapion. So a lot of Rock Tombers and a few Shadow Pokemon as well. In game number 1, it's a good lead for AXN. Diggersby into the Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion is going to play to the CMP tie. AXN more than happy to absorb the super effective Aqua Tail, and AXN did end up clicking on the Fire Punch bait. For Ashton Ash, a tough call to make. He thinks about calling it, he shields, he sees the Fire Punch, and a shake of the head there. As if he had called that could have put him in such an advantageous position. But now it's AXN who is definitely ahead so far in this initial matchup. As the Aqua Tail is going to land, he waits, in comes the Credilli, and that is great patience by AXN. And you'll notice AXN switched in fast enough so he will be able to get a double up on superpowers one turn before the next Rock Tomb. Look at this precision right here. He's going to get the double up one turn before the Rock Tomb. That is amazing precision by AXN. If he was one turn slower, then it would have been a CMP tie and the Rock Tomb would have knocked out the Malamar before it got the second move. But now it's a CMP tie on the second one, which means Malamar is able to completely invalidate that energy. In comes the Azumarill, but Azumarill could potentially look to reverse sweep here. Azumarill, its energy so threatening into that Shadow Jumpluff. Superpower is going to land. AXN trying to limit the farm here, but oh my goodness, the Azumarill is absolutely loaded. In comes the Jumpluff, but with already 8 bubbles of energy, this game has completely flipped on its head. Ashton Ash lost the energy on the Credilli, but he was able to get more energy than he ever had on the Credilli on the Azumarill by brutally farming down the debuffed Malamar. Ice Beam number 2 and Shield number 2. There's going to be the switch, and look at this play by Ashton Ash. He CMP ties on an Aqua Tail. Now, Aqua Tail, not a particularly threatening move, but what this does is this puts the Shadow Jumpluff into a range where Ice Beam will knock out. Ice Beam does not knock out from full HP, but it will knock out now. AXN farming up. Ashton Ash has to watch for the catch. They're farming. There's the switch. He gets to the Scorching Sands on the Diggersby. And for Ashton Ash, he knows he is now in a winning position. Scorching Sands is going to land, but he gets the attack drop. And that might be the difference maker. Ashton Ash commits the shield. You see the reaction there. He played perfectly, but it's a 30% chance at an attack drop. AXN missed all the debuffs earlier. He gets one now. Ice Beam does not KO, and AXN is going to survive. Brilliant gameplay by Ashton Ash, but a last second debuff dooms him, and AXN takes game number 1. Game number 2, it's a nightmare lead for AXN as he's staring down a Credilli with Diggersby. Diggersby can't really do anything in this matchup. It is completely helpless. The Scorching Sands barely tickle the Credilli. It does basically nothing, and even though he got the game-winning debuff last game, this game debuffs proved to be a lot more elusive. Grass Knot is going to connect pretty significant damage onto the Diggersby. Aggressive pivot into the Malamar, but Malamar is getting outpaced. Lightning fast 10-turn pacing, but the Credilli already had a Bullet Seed of energy in reserve, so it's able to outpace, debuff, and now in comes Shadow Drapion. This ends up being a bit of an interesting Aqua Tail from Ashton Ash, as this does not knock out, and you can see Ash, he's visibly frustrated with himself at the fact that Aqua Tail was not enough to KO. And now AXN will get the back-to-back superpowers. But these superpowers have already been one stage debuff to begin with from the Rock Tomb. Ash is going to invest in this Shadow Drapion. Back in comes the Diggersby. Diggersby does unfortunately get the one-turn bring-in lag there. We didn't see a lot of it this weekend, but it did crop up in this particular battle. Diggersby forced to switch out into the Jumpluff, and for this Jumpluff, unfortunately, it's just doomed because Corviknight is lurking in the back, and Corviknight is a complete wall to energy from the Jumpluff. We mentioned earlier that basically out of the good Pokemon, it's basically just Tinkaton that's a flying resist. Corviknight does exist, but it has extreme problems with fast move pressure and with pacing. So Corviknight can be used as a powerful part of a Show 6 Pick 3 team, but it's only entirely relying on its incredible defensive typing. Steel Flying has, I believe, over 10 resistances while only having 2 weaknesses. So even though its moveset is very poor, its defensive typing is so good that even despite those glaring weaknesses with Corviknight, it can still find play. Like in this matchup where it's walling off the Jumpluff. The Aerial Ace bait is no-shielded ItsAXN trying for a catch. He does not get it, and that's just going to be game over here. Jumpluff, all the energy it could ever ask for, but it's never going to be enough to get through the Corviknight. Rock Tomb is going to knock out the Jumpluff, and we're going to a game number 3 in the winners semifinals. And the teams are set for the decisive Game 3 winner semifinals, and it's a dominant lead win for ItsAXN. This is arguably the single worst meta matchup for Corviknight, as each stand attack does exactly 1 HP of damage to Diggersby, meaning that you can take a look at Diggersby's HP. It's basically not decreasing at all from the fast moves, whereas Diggersby has a huge pacing advantage. It can hit for super effective damage. Corviknight gets absolutely destroyed in this matchup. Diggersby just still so healthy. Diggersby farming up quite a bit. There's a catch attempt onto Credilli. ItsAXN banks energy and sends in the Malamar, but you may notice he was slower on the swap this time. Last time, his switch timing was quite literally perfect as he was able to get a double up, but now he won't actually get that double up here as he is going to fall just short. So Ashton Ash is going to no-shield, but he is safe in the knowledge that he has the Rock Tomb banked. So when the superpower lands, he can fire off the Rock Tomb, and now ItsAXN is put in a bit of a precarious position. ItsAXN is going to invest in the Malamar. Malamar has a pacing advantage here, so it will now be able to get the double up and will fire off the superpower. Foul Play still would have KO'd here, but it's the same energy either way, so he is going to fire off this superpower. In comes Drapion. There's an aggressive pivot. He goes for the Fire Punch, anticipating the catch by Ashton Ash. That's a beautiful play by ItsAXN, as Corviknight now gets absolutely rocked. Corviknight gonna fire off this Iron Head, and for Diggersby, it just does not care about this damage. Diggersby gonna look to overfarm quite significantly here at the back-to-back Fire Punches already, and this Fire Punch will easily pick up the knockout onto the Corviknight. For Ashton Ash, he is leaving it all up to 2-shield Shadow Drapion. Drapion gonna be hit with the Scorching Sands. Ash thinking about calling it. He decides at the last second he will invest the Protect Shield. He does not get debuffed, and he will fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail easily KOing the Diggersby, but ItsAXN has a superpower on the Malamar, and he has an entire Shadow Jumpluff. Again, Shadow Jumpluff with this mono flying moveset, we're seeing repeatedly why Energy Ball to me is just not an option. Energy Ball, the only real matchup that gets substantially better with Energy Ball is going to be the Unova Stunfisk matchup, but Unova Stunfisk, it really fell off during this tournament, whereas Acrobatics just offers you such insanely flexible play. Here, Ash overfarms to the max, accidentally playing to the CMP tie, but the competitors exchange words as ItsAXN lets him know he had a superpower on that Malamar anyway, so even if he threw early, ItsAXN could just let it go, click superpower, and win the game, and ItsAXN by a score of 2-1 is going to advance to the winners finals. In the winners finals, he defeated Stud Muffins, and now this set up the grand finals matchup, the battle between teammates, ItsAXN versus Kobe. Kobe had been making an incredible losers bracket run to get to this point. And this is something to note because in every North American regional since I believe Louisville in October, the regional has been won by the trainer coming out of the losers bracket, meaning they win 2 best of 5s against the person coming out of the winners bracket. So for ItsAXN, he only has to win 1 best of 5, but history says he could be in trouble. And in trouble he is in game number 1, leading Tinkaton into Claydol, save switch Blastoise, there's a catch and sneak onto the Azumarill, and Kobe appears very locked in. Coop had to play quite a lot of battles to get to this point, and Coop now pretty happy with the fact that he was able to waste the Blastoise energy. The Skull Bash is reached on the Blastoise. Coop is going to decide to no shield here, as now this Blastoise gets to ramp up its defense even more. But the Blastoise did already take some damage from the Mud Slaps, which means even though it has boosted its defense, that Play Rough still inflicts quite a lot of damage. Azumarill will be able to outpace here. AXN, trying to get fancy, is going to make a nice catch onto the Tinkaton. So AXN is saving energy, trying to desync the timer, doing what he can out of some truly miserable alignment. But now Tinkaton is going to be re-answered with the Claydol, and Claydol just gets to debuff with a Rock Tomb and then commit to an incredibly aggressive farm down. As Claydol will get to exit with so many moves loaded, and this is going to be a big problem as Tinkaton's energy, which could normally threaten Claydol a little bit, doesn't do much of anything here. He's hoping for a Bulldoze, he can't even get that. 1.5 moves loaded for this Claydol. In comes the Blastoise, and for Claydol, you're very comfortable committing the shield here because you know you can Rock Tomb whatever's in the back. So he is going to commit the shield, fire off the Rock Tomb. AXN has to shield back because he knows if he lets it go, his final Pokemon, Malamar, is going to be permanently debuffed. There's going to be the Hydro Cannon launched by the Blastoise, and for Coop, he feels very, very comfortable here. He shields up the Hydro Cannon, he's going to get the farm down. In comes the Malamar, and Malamar will immediately be debuffed by this Rock Tomb. AXN is going to no shield, he knows he's in trouble. In comes the Shadow Drapion, and there's the nod from AXN as he recognizes there is no way for him to win this game. The alignment was always going to be tough, but Coop being able to get that Hydro Cannon catch onto the Azumarill really put him on the path to success, wasting Blastoise's energy, making it take far longer to get to the Skull Bash than it typically would have. We are going to see the back-to-back superpowers launched here, and this is a now double debuffed superpower, and look at Drapion, 1 HP survive. Aqua Tail being launched at the Blastoise, the shield goes up for AXN, but even a shielded move does 1 hit point of damage. Blastoise now even lower, in comes Claydol. Claydol gets the Mud Slap down, and that's a statement win for Coop in Game 1 of this Best of 5 series. In Game 2, a much better lead for AXN, Diggersby staring down a Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion is by no means helpless in this matchup, able to significantly outpace and hit for super effective damage with Aqua Tail. The Aqua Tail is going to land, Coop farm it up. There's a nice catch onto Claydol. Coop's line is designed to bait out the Blastoise here. This is an appetizing target for the Blastoise, but AXN makes the read. AXN, understanding that this is a Blastoise bait out, sends out Jumpluff into a Pokemon that can hit it for single or double super effective damage. And this ends up being an unbelievably good read. The Ice Beam is going to come out. This is big damage, but AXN knows that he can survive. The Ice Beam lands, big damage onto the Jumpluff, but look at Jumpluff go. Jumpluff Fairy Winds down the Claydol and exits with an Acrobatics. In comes the Talonflame, and Talonflame is immediately pressured as Shadow Acrobatics would hit for huge damage. Talonflame gives up the shield, and the game is effectively over as Blastoise rolls onto the field. Fly is going to be reached by the Talonflame. It's open team sheet, so AXN knows this cannot be a Brave Bird, but he will end up investing a Protect Shield. In comes the Shadow Drapion. Drapion going to be immediately chipped down with the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon no shielded by Coop. That is big damage, and now AXN can just send in his Diggersby. AXN would ideally prefer that the Drapion knock out the Diggersby so that way he can roll out down. So, if you're AXN, you're going to see here he doesn't throw his Fire Punch. He wants Coop to throw this energy and knock him out, because that way he just gets an additional rollout of farm on the Blastoise. Blastoise gets the farm down, and now this poor Talonflame is going to get absolutely destroyed. The big man Blastoise on the field. Talonflame will commit the shield, but Talonflame, it just can never get to enough moves to take this game. GGs are exchanged, and the series is all evened up at 1 game apiece. Whoever wins this upcoming game number 3 will gain a pivotal edge in this series. And the leads, well, it's a pretty neutral lead, all things considered. Shadow Jump Fluff into Azumarill. Azumarill hits for double super effective with Ice Beam, but Ice Beam does not pick up a one-hit knockout. Whereas Jump Bluff has a pacing advantage and can come pretty close to two-shotting with Shadow Acrobatics. Axn goes for the Ice Beam catch, but the reaction time from Kobe, he's not going to let that happen, and instead fires off a Play Rough into the Blastoise. That's good damage onto the Blastoise. Out comes Malamar, and Malamar is going to look to farm up quite a bit of energy. Axn very close to the back-to-back moves here. Kobe now with a choice to make. He is going to be no-shielding that Hydro Cannon, and Malamar continues to farm. Malamar, I guess he was worried that a Foul Play would not knock out there because he doesn't throw. And this tournament, I forgot to mention at the start, the new Shadow Malamar was not eligible for due to the fact that it released so close to the tournament start date. So this is a non-Shadow Malamar. We're going to see an undercharge, but he's able to save it and now send in the Jump Bluff. Jump Bluff, very happy to absorb energy here as Foul Play is going to hurt a lot less than a potential Ice Beam. But in comes the Shadow Drapion. Up energy and up a shield. Axn's going for the jugular. Acrobatics into the Drapion. Kobe does respect it with a shield, and Kobe continues to farm. But Axn decides that he's just going to go for the Aerial Ace. Kobe would throw before the Acrobatics anyway. He just wants some form of damage. The Aerial Ace lands, and now this Drapion is running out of health. Kobe goes for the Aqua Tail. Maybe he needed to farm down, because now he won't exit the matchup with 100 energy. The Blastoise is extremely low, so it's going to be the Lapras hitting the field, and there's so much energy available on this Shadow Drapion. The first Crunch is going to be no-shielded in case of a Crunch debuff, and there it is right on cue. The Crunch debuff comes through. Another Crunch, and this time we will see the shields come out from Axn. Axn going to be in a bit of a difficult predicament in this game. He banks the Aqua Tail, sends in the Azumarill, and this is where Skull Bash would be nice, but Axn is not running Skull Bash. Axn going to need to potentially make a catch here, or he could be in trouble. He's farming up so much with the Lapras, and he is going to invest the final Protect Shield now. Lapras already close to 100 energy, but Axn's going to go over. He sees the win con. He can farm down and take the win, but Azumarill gets to the Ice Beam, so Axn catches it. What a play. He goes for the farm down, doesn't get it, but a back-breaking catch for Kobe. Lapras going to exit with both moves. There's an Aqua Tail loaded on that Shadow Drapion, but it will not be enough to knock out. Lapras is still too healthy. Malamar is available, sends in the Malamar, the switch into the Drapion, but with two moves loaded on the Lapras, there's just no path forward for Kobe. Sparkling Aria is going to KO. In comes the Malamar. There's the Ice Beam. ItsAXN taking no chances here. In an incredibly close and back and forth game 3, he's going to take the 2-1 series advantage. Hopping into the final match, it's going to be Blastoise against Malamar. Now this matchup I'm pretty familiar with as the Shadow Malamar, but as the regular Malamar, I'm a lot less familiar. Here, Axn is going to end up CMP tying the Malamar. It looks like to start with, the Malamar did end up missing a few fast moves there. I'm not sure if that was an issue with the venue internet, but it does look like the Malamar does end up being a few turns behind the Blastoise. Hydro Cannon is going to land. We're now going to see a catch by Kobe as he's able to waste Blastoise's energy and now send Azumarill onto the field. So Axn could send in the Lapras, but he's not going to do so. Look at this. Axn, he's going to farm and keep farming. He farms up back-to-back Hydro Cannons, and he's going to be sending in the Lapras. He doesn't even really need switch advantage in this moment. He's just using Lapras as a damage sponge for the energy from the Azumarill in exchange for setting up Blastoise to potentially deal the knockout blow later in the game. Because looking across the team sheet, with the Azumarill out of the way, there's a 4 in 5 chance that whatever Pokemon Blastoise is going to deal with is going to be a Pokemon that does not have a resistance to water. Lapras at the back-to-back Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria number 1 is going to connect. He's farming up. Could go for the Ice Beam, which does slightly more, but he intentionally goes for the Sparkling Aria. Now this Sparkling Aria will not be enough to knock out. Kobe is going to switch into the Malamar, hoping to get the move, but the decision to Aria earlier meant that Axn had the residual energy to outpace the Malamar. Malamar is going to end up committing the shield. There's the switch into the Jump Bluff, and now AXN is feeling it. He knows that all this Malamar is to Jumpluff at this moment is just farm. It's just going to get a full farm down here, exiting with so much energy and with an already loaded Blastoise with 2 Hydro Cannons and now an Acrobatics loaded Jumpluff. Whatever's in back is going to be in serious trouble. And for Kobe Coupint, it's going to be revealed momentarily that it is going to be the Shadow Drapion. Drapion hits the field, instant acrobatics from AXN. He wants to try and punish an O-Shield if at all possible. Kobe Coupint keeps getting the shield calls right, but he's just so far behind on energy. The acrobatics is reached. There's a nice catch from Kobe Coupint, but in doing so, he's going to lose his own Ice Beam. So the acrobatics is going to pick up the KO. In comes the Blastoise. Back-to-back Hydro Cannons are loaded. And the decision for AXN to rebank those double Hydro Cannons, the anti-meta risk that he took in this tournament, it's going to be Blastoise dealing the knockout blow. Down goes Drapion, and ItsAXN is the Portland Regional Champion. All in all, massive congratulations to AXN. I can't really put into words how cool it is to see him back atop the podium. Winning Worlds in 2023 was obviously an incredible accomplishment. He's already won a regional, an international, and a Worlds level competition. And at that point, sometimes it can kind of feel like, what else is there still to achieve? But being able to throw your hat back into the ring and climb to the very top shows that AXN can still compete at a highest level with the absolute best. And he did it his way by bringing a Pokemon that maybe not a lot of people were giving respect to, the non-Shadow Blastoise. And he was able to demonstrate incredible energy management with it, being able to use it as a really effective repositioning tool. And both AXN and Blastoise are now champions. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Home Slice Henry. This is the More Slice Henry channel, where I primarily cover content centered around the Pokemon Go Championship Series, educational content, and just videos that I feel like making. If you enjoy that, then do consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.